All right, we should be live at this point. Let me know if you can hear me. Testing the audio, everybody. Testing the audio. Let's see here. Kind of looks like I'm a ghost there on the screen. What's up with the light? Okay, I'm getting an echo. How about now? You hear me? Good. Here, one moment. Don't know if that changes the light situation or makes it worse. No, that makes it worse. Okay. Looks like we'll just have to deal with the video and the audio and all of the technical limitations of bypassing the Great Firewall of China. All right, this is Ramsey Dewey coming to you live from Shanghai, China. Bridging the Great Firewall. If you are not aware, there is a nationwide firewall about the People's Republic of China that blocks sites such as YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and everything else that the Western world tends to use for social media, video communication, etc. Got my water here. Stay hydrated, friends. This is a advertisement for water. Drink some. Jay says he's a huge fan. Jay, I'm a huge fan of yours. Can I get in trouble for this? That's a very good question. All right, this is a live Q&A. Welcome to this live Q&A. I hope you came with some questions because I came with some answers for you. Max is going to get water. How do I get my kicks better? What type of kick are you trying to get better, my friend? I remember I asked a similar question to a Muay Thai coach of mine, a guy from Thailand, a former Lumpini Boxing Stadium champion. I figured he must have some good ideas for, the round kick. Yes, that's what I said to him, the round kick. To which he replied, what kind of round kick? And I was like, a leg kick. To which he replied, what kind of leg kick? You got to be really, really specific with your questions if you want some really specific answers. Have I tried growing a fuller beard? Yeah, I've had a full-on Santa Claus beard. I played Santa Claus for a group of school children last year. Some of you might have remembered my beard changing color at that point. But how do you make your kicks better? You got to practice them. A lot. Okay, leg kick on the thigh. What kind of leg kick to the thigh? Which part of the thigh are we talking about? Which leg? Front leg? Back leg? Orthodox stance? Fighting orthodox stance? Or an open stance? Orthodox versus southpaw or vice versa? Kicking the front leg, the back leg, inside of the front leg, says Daniel C. Because all these little factors make a big difference, man. As if you ask a general question, how do I make my kicks better? The general answer is you practice them a lot. Right? Now, what problem are you having with a lead leg kick to the inner thigh? We're going to have to ask that and examine these. Again, if you want specific improvements, you got to get really, really specific with your questions. Okay. It looks like we have a super chat already from Jay Andrews who says, Ramsey, what is your opinion on the series Baki and how they fight wild animals as training like gorillas, bears, tigers? I'm not familiar with that series, sorry. I don't know what it is, haven't seen it. Is that one of those Japanese cartoons? People always get offended when I call them Japanese cartoons for some reason. Okay, Daniel C. says, accuracy and balance on the inner leg thigh kick. Okay, so you want to kick the inside leg, okay, and you're having some trouble with accuracy and balance. Where are you hitting? Where are you connecting or are you not connecting when you attempt that kick? It's called an anime, says Furious Dan. Oh man, yes, I know I trigger the whole internet when I call Japanese cartoons Japanese cartoons. But it's an animated film. Animated films are cartoons. They come from Japan, so they are Japanese. They're Japanese cartoons, man. It's called an anime. You wouldn't understand, says Mormon dude. Great screen name, man. Oh, I just saw an interesting question about no-gi grappling. Let me scroll back up to that here, if I can find it. Okay, Anton says, I did my first session of no-gi grappling today. That's grappling without a gi, without the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu uniform. And it's so hard to submit on the bottom, especially when sweaty. Is this why we see more people try to play top in no-gi? You know, I I suppose so. Um, I did a lot of no-gi grappling before I ever put on a gi. I did grappling tournaments. I fought my whole professional MMA career without putting on a gi. And years later, I put on the gi for the first time, and it's radically different. All those grips, the lack of sweat, the lack of friction make a massive difference. But yeah, the top game is going to give you a serious advantage in grappling, especially no gi, because on the bottom with the gi, with the grips, you can stall it out quite a bit. You can kind of control your opponent like an upside down puppet. And no gi, you have to be a lot more proactive. So yes, the top game definitely does make more sense. We have a super chat from the Seattle Sideshow, who says, hey coach, I'm 26, and I've never been in a fight, but I've been fitness training, and in shape actually. Is it possible to get into amateur fighting, such as boxing? Yes, absolutely, it is. Man, I've fielded so many questions from guys in their 20s, 30s, even guys in their teens asking me, am I too old? Am I too old for fight training? Am I too old to prepare for an amateur fight? No, man, no. Absolutely not. 26 is a great time to train. And that is prime training time, especially, if you're already in shape, right? If you're already physically strong, great. Get out there and train. Try out an amateur boxing match. See about it. Physically fit. Good luck to you, my friend. Great. It's definitely not too late for you. Oh man, so many questions flying by. Did I do wrestling in high school? No, I didn't. I didn't do any sports in high school. I was a total wimp in high school, didn't do any athletics. I weighed 90 pounds at a height of 6'1". Yeah, man, wrestling was like the last thing I would have thought of doing back then. I learned wrestling as an adult. We have a super chat from Jay Andrews. Would you recommend fighting bears as training? No, bears will kill you. You've probably seen that old video of Khabib as a young child wrestling with a baby bear. And yeah, that's not indicative of how it would usually go down wrestling with an actual bear, especially a wild one, so don't do that. Super chat from Oscar, who says, can I be a studying musician and an amateur boxer? Yes, you can. Shout out to my friend Willow Nielsen, a professional saxophone player from Australia. Saxophone flair? What does that mean? You take a saxophone and flay people with it? No, a professional saxophone player from Australia. He was a student of mine for some time. And he always had this big concern about training. He was totally fine with boxing, which kind of confused me because I thought he would be more concerned about potentially breaking his fingers. Hey, thanks for the tip, Jake. Anderson just dropped 99 cents. Sweet. Appreciate it. But he was more concerned about damage to his throat. So, yeah, just be aware of the possible risks that you are taking. Understand there are risks in fight training. You can get injured, right? So understand the risks to reward ratio. But you absolutely can do fight training such as boxing and be a musician. Just take necessary precautions. Super chat from Alien Kid Says, from San Diego, huge fan of your videos. Thank you, Alien Kid, huge fan of you, my friend. Is there a way to strengthen joints and ligaments to prepare for jiu-jitsu training? Yes. Yes. Strengthening joints and ligaments is kind of a long-term investment, much longer term than training muscles. So, yeah, get in for the long haul. As far as jiu-jitsu goes, if you are worried about training grips in the gi, do a lot of gi training, okay? If it's no gi or just general jiu-jitsu applications, then do a lot of strength training, lift weights, and do it for years. Do it for a long period of time. Some people might complain and say, no, 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 lifting weights will injure you. No, lifting weights wrong will injure you. Super chat from Nick Bearden. Loved Dempsey's book. Other book recommendations. Man, I should probably read more, but not a lot of access here in the People's Republic of China to English language literature. But I'm trying to think of boxing books. I did a whole video on martial arts books, the good, the bad, the mediocre. Perhaps I could find a link to that. Maybe I'll put it in the comments down below. But yeah, check out my video on martial arts books. We have a super chat from Miguel G, who says, between choosing two gyms, I like both of their BJJ. One school offers pure Muay Thai classes, and the other offers an MMA class. Which one's better for striking fundamentals as a complete beginner? Well, I would have to see the classes, see the quality of them, because in spite of the label that you put on a class, you're going to have a radically different experience. Okay, you could go to a Muay Thai class in one city, go to a Muay Thai class in a gym across the road, and have a radically different experience. Now, obviously a Muay Thai class is going to focus specifically on Muay Thai, which is striking, clinching, infighting, sweeps. Actually, a lot of Muay Thai fights, or a lot of Muay Thai gyms ignore the clinch game completely. I've noticed, especially in the West, man. But, yeah, clinch fighting is a huge, huge part of that. But again, that's a pretty general question. It is entirely possible that this MMA class might have an expert striking coach who could teach you all kinds of striking things that the Muay Thai coach may not. Try them out. That's the only way to know. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. Again, if you want very specific answers, you got to get really, really specific with your questions. Okay, man. So many hundreds of questions here. How does MMA get mainstream in a country with no martial arts culture? I come from Argentina, and let's say only boxing is popular, says Turco. 229. Man, I used to live in Argentina. Lived there back from 1997 until 1999. Left right before the turn of the millennium. Yeah, martial arts weren't too big. I met a couple of guys who did taekwondo, a couple of guys who did boxing, but yeah, MMA was non-existent back then as far as mainstream culture in the world, and definitely non-existent in Argentina. So I'm not sure what the situation is right now, but yeah, we definitely haven't heard of any major UFC fighters coming out of Argentina. I remember a couple of years ago I saw an Argentinian boxer compete in a pro boxing show here in China. Pretty cool match. But what do you do? What do you do when it's not mainstream? Well, I'll tell you what. Your situation is a little different than mine. When it came to China, MMA was non-existent. But China has this very long-standing tradition of martial arts culture, except that nobody here actually does kung fu. Like, people know about kung fu, but nobody really does it. I mean, out of 1.4 billion people, yeah, you'll find little pockets of kung fu schools and all that, but for the most part, the average person doesn't know anything about martial arts here. So what did I do? I started my own gym, and I worked really, really, really hard to promote the sport of mixed martial arts in this country, where there was nothing. So, man, give that a try, because, man, there's a ton of untapped athletic talent in Argentina, man. Man, I remember seeing so many little kids. Everybody plays soccer there. You know this. You're from Argentina. Aguante Argentina, right? And all these little kids who are like, man, between 5 and 10-year-olds are expert soccer football players. You know, way better than their American counterparts by leaps and bounds. I saw like little kids with six-packs running around playing soccer all day. If you could tap some of that athletic talent and adopt that into MMA training, man, I think you could see amazing things coming out of Southern South America. I mean, that would be incredible. A couple more super chats here. One from the mysterious Senor Hitler. I gotta bleep that out, man. Hitler. I made a video with Hitler in the title, and man, that almost got my YouTube channel deleted. It was a video about meeting an ex-Nazi officer who escaped to Argentina after World War II. True story. Anyway, mysterious Senor Hitler says, how do I, as a fan of choreographed combat sports, for example, pro wrestling, enjoy MMA? I personally find it to be slower paced and boxing too fast. Man, there is this societal pressure, I think, in a lot of communities, especially among young men in the West in particular, to like MMA. Like, you have to like it. And if you don't, you're not a real fighter, you're not a real man. Like, you got to turn in your man card if you don't like the UFC. But look, if you don't like the UFC, that's okay. That's okay. You don't have to like it. If you love pro wrestling, I get that. Pro wrestling is fun, man. It is a fun thing to watch, right? I get it. Okay, man. All the kids of my generation, back when I was a kid, we all watched pro wrestling. I mean, we all knew it was scripted, right? But it was fun to watch, so I get it, right? So if you don't enjoy MMA, that's okay. You don't have to enjoy MMA. If you don't like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, man, I got this question from this dude who trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he hated it. He hated jiu-jitsu. Okay, but he felt like the societal pressure. If I don't train in jiu-jitsu, if I don't attain a certain belt rank, I won't gain the respect of my peers. So what? Find some new peers if that's your situation. If people are judging you based on something that you hate and you don't want to be in that situation, you know, go do what you love. Life is too short. Life is too short, man. Super chat from Harley Quinn, who says, I was just going to say I watched a video about how Bruce Lee trained. Even though many martial artists believe that weightlifting would make them slow. Yeah, that's true. You know, I get a lot of negative comments from members of the Church of Jeet Kune Do, these Bruce Lee fanatics who think I'm a Bruce Lee hater, because they always ask me this question, like, how would Bruce Lee do in a fight in his prime against modern-day UFC champions, to which the answer would be, you know, he would not have been prepared for that situation, right? Where Bruce Lee was really ahead of his time, and this is where the Bruce Lee worshippers don't really understand the man, the myth, the legend himself, where he was really ahead of his time, right? Was with weightlifting, was with strength training, because he was strength training at a time when everybody was telling all fighters, you know, boxers, martial artists, all these guys, weightlifting will make you slow. It will make you muscle bound. It's going to hold you back. And here was Bruce Lee doing squats, right? He wasn't the strongest guy. And I know a lot of people will say, no, he was superhuman. No, he wasn't the strongest guy, but he was doing squats back before doing leg day was popular, man. Bruce Lee was way into weightlifting. He had weightlifting equipment all over his house. And he was always trying out the latest thing he could get his hands on to try to find a way to get stronger. And that is truly admirable. And that's one way where he really tried to push the martial arts community forward. Unfortunately, many people in the martial arts community still reject that training ideology, unfortunately, because strength training is that thing you need to give you that extra pop, that extra power, they not just that, but to protect yourself from damage, right? If you want longevity in a sport, make sure you're doing strength training. Dr. Fistface sends in a super chat. Man, thank you so much for all the super chats today. He says, how do you feel after a long workout? I'm so exhausted I can't do anything for 2 hours maybe. Maybe because of caffeine. I can't get a workout without it. Man, that's unfortunate. I don't use caffeine at all. I don't recommend it at all. I've made a few videos about this. Why? Because I don't want to have to rely on a substance to feel normal. And I find that is generally the case with people who use or abuse caffeine, is that at first it gives you this hit. It makes you feel like, oh, I've got this energy or whatever, right? But then you get to the point where you can't feel normal without it, right? How do I feel after a long workout? I feel okay. I feel like, generally I do 2 to 3 workouts a day. Sometimes I'll teach more classes than that, and so it can get pretty tiring. So generally I will take a short nap in the middle of the day. So that helps a lot. Maybe if you can pencil in the time for a short power nap, when you're feeling down after a workout, that can go a long way. I would recommend try to wean yourself off the caffeine. See if you can get a good workout. Maybe you'll get a few bad workouts in without the caffeine, but see if you can wean yourself off it until you can get back to having a good, normal workout without a substance pushing you. Try it out. See what you think. Thank you, Dr. Fistface, for the question. Man, I've seen a bunch of questions about YouTuber Ranton. I don't know how to pronounce that. If it's the guy I'm thinking of, I think I've seen a couple of his videos. He's like, he spent a few years at Shaolin, training with the monks. What do I think of him? I don't know. Haven't really seen enough of his work to form an opinion, my friend. So, there you go. All right, other questions? Alex Scott has sent me a number of questions, essentially asking for a second opinion on hip surgery. Man, that sounds like a question for an expert. I am not an expert on hip surgery, so, man, maybe get a second or third medical professional opinion on that one. And when you go for medical opinions, outside of consulting general practitioners, because general practitioners will often point you towards surgery as the first option, check with some sports medicine doctors, right? Because they will often point you in directions of non-surgical alternatives that often have excellent results. So I hope that helps, my friend. What street legal weapon would you prefer to use in a self-defense scenario? Man, everybody wants to know about self-defense and the streets. What street legal weapon? Oh man, that depends on whether or not I've got a baby stroller in the back of my car. I don't actually have a car. I haven't driven a car in over 12 years. Have not used an automobile. Let's see here. We've got a few super chats. Another one from Harley Quinn, who says she didn't finish. Bruce Lee lifted weights. Anyhow, love your content. Yeah, love your input. Thanks again, Harley Quinn. All right, Hayes Mag. Ow, that's a lot of vowels in that name. I'll call you Hayes. Super chat from Hayes, who says, "Hey coach, I have 2 dissected discs in my is it L4 to L5 vertebrae. Can you recommend 3 exercises for strength training and weight loss?" Oh man, I am actually not sure which vertebrae those are. Desiccated discs. All right, and I'm not actually familiar with the nature of that injury. So again, this is one of those questions I would definitely point you toward a sports medicine doctor. So the exercises I generally recommend to people who are not suffering from neck and spinal trauma, squats, deadlifts, and pull-ups. I do not know what kind of effects those would have on people. But as far as the most bang for your buck, those are the types of things I would recommend for the average person. So I apologize. I do not understand the nature of that injury. But whatever you can do that is not stressing out the injury, right? Do that. When we have serious injuries, it's really, really tempting just to lie in bed and do nothing or sit on the couch and do nothing. And that is one of the worst things you can do. So find whatever ways that you can do to get up and move that are not aggravating the injury. Again, I am not a medical doctor. So I hope that helps. I hope that can motivate you to seek advice from someone who specializes in neck and spinal trauma. Okay, Jake Anderson says, "Hey coach, have you sparred an effective catch-as-catch-can wrestler? Is it effective and polished enough for modern MMA? Does its rarity make it effective?" You know, I would like to think that I am an effective catch-as-catch-can wrestler, man. I do catch wrestling all the time. Do I know catch wrestlers? Yes. Yes, man, there are some fantastic catch wrestlers. When I lived in Utah for a few years, and the catch wrestling community really started to take off over there. Guys like Jake Shannon was really promoting catch wrestling with Billy Robinson when he was still alive. They were doing seminars all over. Brandon Ruiz, excellent grappler, catch wrestler, jiu-jitsu black belt, collegiate wrestler, veteran mixed martial artist. You know, awesome guy. He makes some YouTube videos as well. Go check him out. Unfortunately, I wish he would make more. But yeah, catch wrestling is awesome. Is it a legitimate grappling style? Absolutely, 100%. I wish it was as popular as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Here's one thing that bugs me about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and mixed martial arts and how closely associated they are is the gi. Because the gi is not part of modern mixed martial arts. It's just not. And so, in order to essentially be respected in the mixed martial arts community, you also have to be respected in the gi grappling community. So you have to learn this completely radically different skill set that has nothing to do with the grappling you'll do in MMA in order to appease the normals, if you will. But with catch wrestling, man, all of that carries over immediately. The pin and submit mentality, the be the guy on top mentality of catch wrestling is awesome. The no holds barred mentality of catch wrestling is awesome and transfers 100% to MMA. There are many examples of great catch wrestlers in mixed martial arts, professionally, amateur, etc. So, unfortunately, there are not a lot of catch wrestling specific coaches out there. I hope that will change given time. Joe Anderson says, "Ramsey, what are your thoughts on Mike Tyson getting back into the ring? Do you think it will go well for him, or will he be squashed? Personally, I think he might be too old, but watching him train is freaky. You know, I think Mike's going to be fine. He's going to do an exhibition fight. I don't think he's going to go in there with a young up-and-comer heavyweight contender who's going to put him in his place or anything. It's going to be an exhibition fight. You know, I'm actually doing an exhibition fight tomorrow night here in Shanghai. Yeah, I'm getting in the cage again. It's an exhibition fight. Okay? And yes, strikes will be thrown, but it's a radically different thing than how can I put this? Young, hungry fighters trying to kill each other. Will I film it? I certainly hope they let me film it. We'll see. But yeah, I'm doing an exhibition fight tomorrow night. So I think Mike Tyson's going to be fine. Absolutely fine. The question is, will his opponent be fine? Thanks for the question, Joe Anderson. Another question from Hayes, who says, two vertebrae in my lower back are bone on bone. Thank you for your advice. Also, have you looked into Bartitsu? Yes, Bartitsu. If you're not familiar with Bartitsu, it is this old-timey Victorian English fighting style developed by a guy named Bart. And I was so fascinated when I first learned about this many years ago. This guy named Bart, he traveled, he trained in Japan, I believe, learned jiu-jitsu, stick fighting. I think he also trained in savate and several other styles, and decided to mix the best of these styles to create his own, which he called Bartitsu. And what's more fascinating than that is that there are these societies of historical anachronisms that try to recreate historical Bartitsu, which I think is so fascinating. So they put suits on, they train in suits, they've got their walking sticks to do the cane fighting. Fascinating stuff from a historical and psychological perspective. Jason Herman sends in a super chat. He says, what is the best way to gauge progress in BJJ? Okay, the great thing about BJJ is that you can gauge your progress each and every time you step on the mat, because it is a live art. It is a live art. So you get immediate feedback when you roll with your training partners. Is what I'm doing effective or not? Okay. But I would also recommend get outside of your regular group of training partners. Maybe go visit some other gyms, do a little bit of gym hopping, roll with people who are not used to your game as well, because it's going to be a very different experience. Because when you're always rolling with the same people, they get used to your movement fingerprint, your movement patterns, right? They have studied you, and sometimes those guys can be the most difficult roles, right? So, yeah, get out of your comfort zone, train with some guys you haven't trained with, roll with some guys you haven't rolled with, do tournaments, see how you perform under different types of pressure, and yeah, live performance, live testing is the way to gauge your progress in jiu-jitsu. Bendu Attitude sends in a super chat. He says, are you familiar with the manga anime Kengan Ashura? It gets a little ridiculous, but I found Jesse Enkamp U and Sensei Seth thanks to it. Yes, I am in the middle of editing a new episode of fantastic fictional fight scenes all about Kengan Ashura. It is going to be a three-part series on this show. I have received thousands, probably about 1,500 comments, questions, and requests from the fans to do a video about this. So we're making three. The first part, I'm in the middle of editing it right now. Well, not right now, this very moment, because I'm talking to you. But I looked at the manga, not the anime, right? I looked at the manga, and we recreated the fight scene. It's a fight scene between, what are their names? They're Japanese names. It's the one that everybody asked me to do, which is like I mean, there are some very fantastical fight scenes in this where people are using basically magic powers to fight each other. But there was this one more grounded in reality where they have this guy who's supposed to be an MMA fighter against another dude who uses a similar fighting style. And so we recreated that shot for shot according to the manga, right? So that's going to be part one. Part two is going to be the second part of that fight, because it took us quite a while to film that first one. And part three will be a review of the anime itself, comparing and contrasting that. So I hope you guys enjoy that. I've received so many requests for that one that, yeah, I hope you guys have fun with it as well. You guys and your Japanese cartoons. All right, Bubble Whip sends in a super chat. Hey, Ramsey, what rules and scoring would you change in unified MMA rules other than the 12 to 6 elbow if you had the power? Get out there and train. Bubble Whip, appropriating my catchphrase. All right. You can have that. You can have get out there and train. Tell everybody you know, get out there and train. So, what rules and scoring would I change? I would get rid of the 10-point must scoring system. In fact, I would get rid of a lot of the boxing traditions. Most of the rules in modern mixed martial arts come from boxing traditions. Why? Because they were written by a boxing commission, the New Jersey State Athletic Control Board, which is a boxing commission back in the year 2000. Because at this time, MMA was essentially banned almost everywhere in the United States. And yeah, man, they were trying to legitimize it. And so the boxing commission suggested, well, let's add similar rules to boxing: rounds, 10-point must system, gloves, rules like boxing no headbutts, etc. So the first thing I would get rid of would be the 10-point must system. I like how ONE FC does it, judging the fight as a whole. So all 3 rounds are judged as one fight instead of 3 separate rounds, because it is weird. It is weird. There are lots of ways to game the system with rounds. I would get rid of the rounds. I would rather see one 15-minute fight with no breaks in between rather than separate rounds. The rounds create this really artificial break that often gives people this unfair reset. For example, if you work really hard to take your opponent down, to pin him in the corner, you're beating him up, you're beating the crap out of him, and you would be in a position to finish that fight if you just had a few extra seconds, but then the bell rings, the guy gets literally saved by the bell, not by his athletic competence, but by an arbitrary time limit set by an athletic commission. That's nonsense, in my estimation. The whole point of MMA was to emulate real fighting, to see what would happen if you took the best guys from all these different fighting styles, put them in a cage, and then had them fight. What happens, right? And as soon as we add rounds, boxing scoring systems, other boxing traditions, it starts turning into this weird thing that doesn't resemble reality anymore. So yes, I would get rid of the breaks, get rid of the rounds. I'm fine with a time limit, because if it goes on 30 minutes, that just really starts to get boring. But I would judge that single round as a whole. That would be the most important thing for a change in the rule set, in my opinion. All right. Salim L. Wuthering says, "Yo, boss, love you, but you get weird with the analogies sometimes. Would you rather eye poke or jab punch against a threat? Please." Huh. Would I rather eye poke or jab against a threat? How many people have you poked in the eye deliberately? I've done it accidentally while sparring a few times, but deliberately, how many people have you poked in the eye? I hope not a lot, because that kind of makes you a terrible human being. Young Crisp sends in a super chat. He says, "Hey Ramsey, I just bought a few kettlebells." Cool. I love kettlebells. He says, "I want to know what you think the best workout to train my whole body would be. I've been doing a lot of squats and swings, but I want to try more." Okay. Add snatches, cleans, and push presses to that, and also Turkish get-ups. The Turkish get-up with a kettlebell is one of the best exercises you can do for your whole body to train functional strength in the core. And I've got a 32 kilo kettlebell that I like to do Turkish get-ups with. It took me a while to build up to that, because it takes a lot of core strength. A lot of core strength that you don't necessarily see with abdominal striations. And I had a student who was just a beast power lifter. Like, this guy could just squat and deadlift tremendous numbers. But I handed him the 32 kilo kettlebell, and after watching me do get-ups with it, he thought, oh, that should be pretty easy. I'm like twice your size and several times your strength. And he couldn't do it. And he looked at me and said, "Dude, that is a different type of strength." Yeah, it's definitely something that will give you a competitive edge as far as fighting goes. So add the Turkish get-ups, 100% that, but also snatches and cleans and push presses for sure. All right, we've got more super chats. One from Blake Bellinger, who says, "Can you do more videos on dance and its connection to martial arts? I study Cunningham, Limon, ballet in university. Stay awesome." Oh, yeah. Merce Cunningham. Cool. Cool, man. That is an interesting subject. I think I'm going to talk a little bit about it right now. Dance and martial arts. There, there are connections that you'll see right away. There is athletic crossover you will see right away. Okay, you know, strength, flexibility, coordination, all of these simple things. Okay, but the the most valuable thing about dance that carried over for me as far as martial arts goes was what I call being a muscle mimic, being able to see action and then being able to replicate that action. And that's a difficult skill set that takes a lot of time, but it's something dancers have to do. They have to do it, right? If you study dance at a university level, for example, you have to compete to get into the programs, right? You got to audition for everything. And in those auditions, they'll show you a piece of choreography, a complex piece of choreography, like 30 seconds a minute, even 2 minutes long. And they'll show it to you once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times if you're lucky. And then you just have to do it. Think about that for a minute. You might not understand how difficult that is if you've never tried it before. Look at a complex piece of dance choreography. And then just try to do it after seeing it once or twice. Okay? That is a skill set that professional dancers have to master. They have to master that. Because if you don't have that, you will fail every audition. So how does that carry over to martial arts? Okay. Well, here's one of the more obvious examples. You ever gone to a Brazilian jiu-jitsu class and the coach, the professor, was showing you some new move you've never seen before, and he shows it a few times. He's like, all right, any questions? And everybody's just staring, blinking, afraid to ask because they don't want to look like the dumb one in the room. And then everybody's struggling afterward, and the coach is like, okay, guys, come on over here, let me show you again. Right? Even though he showed it like 15 times. And then you got to keep breaking it down. But man, dancers, they've got to get it on the first go. So that is an incredibly valuable skill set. So keep working on that one in particular. Not just to learn new moves, but also for film studies. Man, this is another thing. In dance in college, I did a lot of film studies on a lot of dancers, including Merce Cunningham. And man, that is a skill set that transfers so well into coaching because as a coach, I'm constantly doing film studies on fighters. Okay. All right, let's take a look at some of these other questions. I'm looking shiny. Yeah, I have no way to adjust what the screen looks like right here. But yes, I tried adjusting the light. It just made me look shinier and more ghostly. Here's a interesting question from Moises 348. He says, does MMA or boxing or BJJ or Muay Thai stop the height of growth at the age of 16 years old? No. And can you be an auto mechanic while being an MMA fighter? Of course you can. Man, of course you can. I'm always telling you guys, go out and get a job, right? If you are getting into mixed martial arts or you want to be a professional fighter. Do I live in Japan? No, I live in China. I live in the People's Republic of China. For whoever asked that. But yeah, most professional fighters, when they start out, they work full time. Right? When I was fighting in the United States, for example, I was working 3 jobs. I worked for U-Haul, for example. I wasn't a mechanic, but I did do some maintenance on the trucks there, cleaning and maintenance of the U-Haul trucks. I was doing that as well as coaching, and I was also working as a substitute teacher. Man, I worked in a factory, did that for quite some time, doing heavy lifting at a factory. So, man, you have to support yourself. This is something a lot of young people don't understand. I get questions constantly from young guys who basically ask me for a handout. Like, hey, can I come and train at your gym for free and sleep on your mats and basically get a free ride without having to work? And the answer is no. You have to support yourself. You must become self-reliant. That is incredibly important for fighters, not just to pay the bills while you are fighting, but in order to pay the bills after you are done fighting. Because there will come a time sooner rather than later that you will be done fighting, that you will have to hang up the gloves against your will, most likely, and you will need to be able to be a productive member of society. You will need to be able to support yourself, and most likely others as well. So if you have the skills to be an auto mechanic, yeah, do that, my friend. Do that. That is an important job. That is a job that can support you, sustain you, support a family, etc. And if you also have the dream to be a mixed martial artist, okay, pursue that as well. Yes, you can do both. But as far as your question about whether fight training will stop you from growing, this is one of those old wives' tales that physical training will stop you from growing. Okay? Injury of your growth plates will stop you from growing. I had a friend who had this serious leg injury. I don't remember how he got it, but he bashed up his leg really badly and injured one of the growth plates. That's like the tissues between the joints or whatever, where growth of the bone happens. And so he ended up having mismatched legs. One was slightly longer than the other when he grew up. But is that normal? No, right? Train intelligently so you don't sustain serious injuries. You're going to be fine. Joe Anderson says, do you think Zhang Weili can take down Nunes if they were to fight? Ooh, take down. I assume you mean win the fight as opposed to simply take her down. Can Zhang Weili land a takedown against Amanda Nunes? Yes. Yes, she absolutely could. Would she be able to capitalize on that takedown? Would she be able to hold her on the ground and do something meaningful to win that fight in that time interim? It's possible. It's possible. Zhang Weili has a lot of really good trainers. There is a lot invested into her success right now. And, you know, that's her trainers. That's, you know, the whole country of China behind her. That's the UFC with a vested interest in growing the sport of mixed martial arts in China. But, you know, even with the whole world behind you, as soon as you step into a cage, it's kind of shocking, the realization of how incredibly alone you are. So, yeah, man. Can she win? Yes, she can. It's a fight I would like to see. I don't want to throw out any crazy predictions right here, but yeah, are they in different weight classes? Yeah, they're in different weight classes. If they were the same weight class, so hypothetically speaking, it would be an interesting fight, but yeah, I think Nunes is cutting down from, I think she's cutting down from, how much? Probably a lot more than 145. So I don't think the fight will happen. I would love to see these fantasy fights, man. I would love it. Women are in this weird position because they're in these teeny tiny divisions, and I don't think people really understand. People who haven't cut weight before, I don't think they really understand how much of a sacrifice it is to get down that extra 10 pounds to that lower weight class, or even that extra 5 pounds to get down to that lower weight class when you're already cutting from way up there. Like, a great example of this would be Cyborg. Man, Cyborg, man, she was walking around how much? Like 175 pounds to cut down to 145. I do not know how she was able to compete at that level. I don't know how she did that. Because I have cut that amount of weight before, and it kills you, man. It absolutely kills you, so I don't know how she did that. So to ask a fighter like that to go 5, 10 pounds more, man, that could be a death sentence. But I love to entertain the fantasy of what would happen if you could just stick these different fighters in different divisions against each other. But skill-wise, could a fighter like Zhang Weili take down, as in do a takedown? This is a really interesting thought experiment. on a fighter like Amanda Nunes? How does their wrestling match up? What do you guys think? Matt Torres says toes up or toes down for checking kicks. Well, that depends on what you want to do with that check. If you want to turn that check into catching the kick, you can scoop it up by flexing your foot with the toes up, right? If you want to generally keep your toes out of the way, just in case the kick goes low, I mean, that's fine. If they hit you in the foot, either way, it's going to hurt. But always be very specific about your questions. What do you want to accomplish with that check? Do you want to do damage to him? Which you should. That is the purpose of checking a kick, to damage the other guy, after all, not simply to prevent damage to you. Aaron sends in a super chat. He says, can you make a fight scene review of the movie Sword of the Stranger? Ooh, I haven't heard about that one. I'll have to check that one out. The fight scenes are clearly over-exaggerated, but there's a lot of interesting moves, and I think it captures the tensions of fights really well. Sword of the Stranger. I'm going to take a photograph of this screen, old school like that, for future reference. Thanks for the suggestion. I'll keep that in mind, put that on my list for future episodes of fantastic fictional fight scenes. Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it. And we have another super chat from Hayes, who says, last question, I promise. All right. I'll hold you to that promise, my friend. Now, if you want to ask other questions, that's fine. Hayes says, have you ever thought of doing a tutorial video series teaching speed bag or classic boxing? Your solo bag work is great. Yeah, actually, I do have a couple of videos on the speed bag. And I do have a number of boxing technique videos up on my martial arts technique, fighting technique playlist on my channel. But yes, I do have another speed bag video in the works right now, specifically speed bag patterns that translate to practical hand fighting patterns that you can use in a fight. Not all speed bag patterns are transferable to fighting. Some of them are. Some of them are. So I'm making a video about those ones. And we've got a super chat from Professor Mike American Radio, who says, can you review of Shidokan triathlon fights like how you reviewed other arts? Also, your opinion on affirmative action, left politics in some arts. Affirmative action, left politics in some arts. I don't really understand that part of the question, but let's talk about Shidokan for a minute. Dude, did you guys ever watch the Shidokan tournaments back in the day? If you're not familiar, Shidokan karate tournaments, man, those were cool. The first round was traditional kumite. It was like Kyokushin style kumite, right? They'd put on the gi, they would fight in a boxing ring under karate rules, right? Full contact karate. And the second round was Muay Thai rules. And the third round, they called it grappling, but it was MMA rules. Okay? And you could win by knockout at any point along the way. It was awesome. I love the Shidokan format. I would love to see a comeback of Shidokan triathlon-style fighting tournaments, because those were cool. They were awesome. It's like something for everybody, something for the karate nerds, something for the Muay Thai fans, something for the MMA guys, and put it all together, and it's just really, really cool. So, man, I would love to see Shidokan come back. I have a friend, Franco de Leonardis. He was a Shidokan champion. I met him here in China. He did a seminar at my old gym. Awesome guy, very knowledgeable. So, man, a lot of those old Shidokan guys, like Shawnee Carter, went on to fight in the UFC. So, man, loved that format. It's also a great format. I from time to time, do that sparring in the gym. We'll do a round of kumite, a round of Muay Thai, then a round of MMA. That's a fun way to spar. Hatchet77 sends in this question. I don't get to catch too many of your live streams due to time zones, but keep up the great content. Thank you, Hatchet77. Glad you could join us. I know here in China, I live in the future compared to most of the Western world. Right now, it's It's Friday afternoon. You know, for a lot of you, it's still Thursday night. What else? Oh man, I gotta give a shout out to my friend Red Chucks. I know he's been lurking around in the chat today. Go check out his recent breaking video. He is a competitive breaker, breaks stacks of bricks. Recently, he passed a benchmark, did a stack of 10 bricks with his elbow on a particular break that was giving him some trouble. So shout out to Red Chucks for making that happen. He attributed his success to film studies, which is awesome. Because, man, if you're having trouble in a martial art, whatever your martial art is, whether it's competitive breaking, competitive mixed martial arts, competitive karate, whatever, do film studies on successful patterns. Like, look at the people who are successful. Watch what they are doing. It's not magic. It's not some unlearnable thing. I had some guy leave a comment on a video I made analyzing a footwork pattern from Muhammad Ali. And he said, you shouldn't be teaching that because only Muhammad Ali could do that. That only worked for him. To which my response is, man, there is a reason he was successful. He was successful because he used these movement patterns. We can learn from analyzing his movement patterns. We should learn from analyzing successful patterns. Every coach should know that. Muhammad Ali could do it way better than most people, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't study him. All right, another question from Professor Mike. He says, I competed in Shidokan triathlon for 6 years. Awesome, right on, man. In the 90s and early 2000s. I meant left-wing politics like trans fighters beating women as an example. Okay. I see what you mean. As far as the trans issue, I made a video about this. I made a whole video about this. And this is a subject that it gets a ton of attention, like a ton of attention from the media when you bring up trans fighters in any combat sport. Okay. And you have to ask, how many actual trans fighters are out there? Not very many. There really are not very many. I searched the internet for a couple of hours about a month ago trying to figure out how many trans fighters there actually are. And by that I mean there are not very many. I found 3. Oh, sweet. Sensei Seth has joined the chat. Welcome, Sensei Seth. If you haven't seen it yet, go check out the interviews that Seth and I did together. He put together some awesome videos about mixed martial arts and traditional martial arts over on his channel. Go check him out. Shout out to Sensei Seth. But getting back to this this question about trans fighters, I only found 3. One boxer, a person who was born a woman, transitioned to male, and then began boxing as a man, and then 2 instances of MMA fighters, the most well-known being Fallon Fox. Fallon Fox, as far as I'm aware, is retired at this point. And then the other one was a male to female transgender athlete who has not made any major headlines. So if you look at media reaction, it sounds like there are thousands and thousands of transgender fighters lining up to fight in the women's division. That's simply not true. It's not true. This is it's not even a niche. It's like we're literally talking about a couple of people. Well, 3 people. Well, 2 active people, 2 active fighters. We're literally talking about a couple of people when we're talking about trans athletes. So this is a case-by-case scenario type of thing. So I don't think it's anything anybody needs to be getting mad about, like, oh, let's enact some policies, because it's like something that barely ever happens, and if and when it happens, yeah, take a look at the situation. All right. Draythanake says, Seth, we're talking about Transformers. You're just in time. Yes, Seth. Bumblebee is the best Transformer. Way better than Optimus Prime and Megatron. Everybody knows that. Guys, let's just pretend we were talking about Transformers the whole time. Seth, you didn't hear that. All right. Any more martial arts related questions? Starscream is the best. Yeah, man, right on. Spoiler alert for a very old movie, but man, you guys see Starscream die in Transformers the movie? Oh man, I know they were trying to sell the new line of toys by killing off the old ones, but that was kind of heart wrenching for kids who grew up watching the original Transformers cartoon. Then when Transformers the movie, the original, came out and they killed off a bunch of the old ones, and Starscream just gets disintegrated. And you're just like, whoa. I mean, he was annoying, but he wasn't that annoying. Come on, man. Come on. Okay. Alias John has a question about ambidextrous fighters. Let's take a look at this one. Alias John says, you once made a video about ambidextrous fighters and said that right-handed southpaws are a real thing. What are right-handed southpaws? How are they different from regular ones? Well, they are right-handed people who fight southpaw and who know how to fight southpaw. Now, I've seen a lot of right-handed people who say, I'm a southpaw, I'm a right-handed southpaw, because they don't know how to box, basically. They don't know how to box, and they're not really a southpaw. They just don't know how to box. And so often what I will do, I'll get in the ring with them and I will spar with them from a southpaw stance. I'll get in a southpaw stance myself. I'm not a southpaw. And most of the time, they just absolutely flounder and they don't know what to do because they don't really understand southpaw strategies. They've never fought or sparred a southpaw. And yeah, man, I've had 4 different boxing coaches who were southpaws. So yeah, that was a really interesting experience, learning boxing from southpaws. So, man, oh, Sensei Seth has a question from, he says, who was your favorite Ninja Turtle? I feel like we'd have the same one. You know, when I was a kid, my favorite Ninja Turtle was Donatello, because he was the smart one. He was the one who could figure out problems with his mind. And that really resonated with me because I was a wimpy little nerd. Same! Oh, man. Sensei Seth, are we the same person? Right? And, you know, his weapon was a stick. It wasn't a sword. It wasn't this lethal, deadly weapon like Leonardo, but he still knew how to hold his own with a, you know, just a stick, because he's a really smart guy. So that resonated with me. All right. You just like the bow staff, don't you? You know, as a kid, it's way easier to get your hands on a stick than it is on a sword. And so pretending that you're Donatello is way easier than pretending that you're, say, Michelangelo, because, you know, if you grow up in a small town where there are no martial arts supply stores, you can't just go out and get nunchucks. Or if you live in the UK, I believe it's illegal to get nunchucks. But yeah, I think there were a lot of little kids fantasizing they were Donatello waving sticks around. Back in the day. Oh, Salim says, what do you think about stone throwing against a knife attack? Are you planning any Stone Age hunting style training? No, but that reminds me of a story, man. I'm going to tell you a story about a big fight I got into in junior high school. But first I'm going to answer the super chat from Professor Mike. He says, I don't like Donatello because his reach was longer in the games. Oh, I liked Donatello because his reach was longer in the games. That's true. In the arcade games, his reach was longer. Also in the first NES game, he had the longest, most powerful weapon. And in some of the games, they made all the Ninja Turtles weapons the same reach for some reason. But yeah, I get it. All right, so my big middle school, well, they called it junior high school back then. My big junior high school 7th grade fight story. Answering Salim's question about stone throwing. So when I was in 7th grade, well, I got bullied a lot, and on this one particular day, all the bullies were coming out of the woodwork to harass me. Right at the beginning of the day. Okay? And they were just, man, they were just saying things, kicking me, poking me, just doing everything they could to annoy me and get me angry. And boy, did they ever. And eventually I got sick of it, so I stood up to the leader of the bullies, and I said to him, after school, in the park, be there. Suddenly a hush fell over the room. Everyone's like, ooh, ooh, Dewey's gonna fight after school, ooh. And so, kind of settled down. The bully stopped picking on me for a minute. I felt like a big man because I said some big angry words. And then the reality started sinking in slowly. I was like, holy crap. I just challenged the bully to a fight. And I don't actually know how to fight. And I started thinking back to everything I knew about fight. Okay, I've seen a couple of Bruce Lee movies. I played Double Dragon. Yes, I played Double Dragon in the arcade. That was an old school arcade game about fighting. If for all you young folks who don't aren't well schooled in the history of video games. And that was about it. That was about it as far as fight experience. I'd seen a couple of movies and played a fighting themed video game. And I realized, crap, I don't know how to fight. What am I going to do? So I was planning out this whole thing. I was going to go to the park. I was going to I don't know. I had all these ideas about how it was going to play out in my head. Okay. So what happened? After lunch, the bully and about 15 of his friends, they come around the corner. I'm like, what are they doing? It's not after school. This isn't the park. What's going on? They surround me. And then the whole school follows. Like everybody in the junior high school follows, and they form this giant big circle around me. And then the bully comes out. One of the bully's friends says, hey, heard you guys are going to fight. Why don't you just do it right here, right now? I was like, crap. This wasn't my plan. What am I going to do? And I thought, well, I'll puff out my chest and say some angry words again. And I said, all right. I said after school, and that's what I meant. And so I tried to push my way through the crowd. And they were like, you're not getting out of this. And so a group of the bullies grabbed me, threw me on the ground, started kicking the crap out of me right there. Not even the school bully I had challenged to a fight, just his friends. Hold on, we'll get back to this story in a moment. We have a super chat from Hatchet77 who says, I was thinking of getting my 8-year-old daughter into judo. It seems like a fit. I don't know. I was thinking karate as well. You know, those are great martial arts. I have an 8-year-old daughter myself, and she really enjoys jiu-jitsu, particularly doing jiu-jitsu with me. She likes grappling with me. She likes trying to get me into arm bars. Not all kids are like that. My younger daughter likes to punch things a lot more than she likes to grapple. So, you know, talk to your daughter. Maybe go try out a couple of classes. See what she likes. See what resonates with her. Judo is grappling. Karate is primarily striking. I know Sensei Seth might have something to say about that. It's more than that. But primarily, yeah, you're going to grapple in judo, you're going to strike in karate. So see what resonates with her. Maybe even try both. All right, back to my story. This story is an example of what the streets are like. So I was on the ground. The bully's friends, like 15 of them, were getting the crap kicked out of them. Yes, Sensei Seth says free classes do wonders. Yes, most martial arts schools will offer a free class. Okay. If they don't offer a free class, don't bother with them. LOL. Yes, good advice from Sensei Seth. Go check out the free classes. And if they insist you sign up for an $800 package before you even see what they have to offer, yeah, don't bother with it. So yes, I was being attacked by the bullies. They were beating the crap out of me, and I just got another super chat. We'll get back to this story momentarily. Sammy says, hi Ramsey, how you doing? I'm doing awesome. I have a Muay Thai fight tomorrow after 1 year from ACL surgery to my left knee. Wish me luck and have a good day. Good luck, my friend. Don't focus on a former injury. Focus on giving that other guy a present injury. Good luck to you, my friend. Hands raised at the end. All right, so back to the story. I love these comments, man. I love these comments. So, the bullies are beating the crap out of me. They're just kicking me in the guts. Not in the face, just in the body, in the chest. I ended up having a broken sternum after this. So I still have a recessed indentation in my sternum from this to this day. So I'm trying to get back up to my feet. They just keep kicking my legs out from under me and just beating the crap out of me, all to the body. And I managed to get up. The bullies kind of clear out. And then this kid named Steve. Steve was the biggest kid in the 8th grade because he had flunked several times. He was basically an adult fighting a child at this point. Like he was 2 or 3 times my size. And he was like, my turn, my turn. You ever seen that scene in what was that Indiana Jones movie where Indiana's fighting these normal sized guys and this big giant bald guy comes out. He's like, give me a piece of that action. That was what it was like. So Steve comes up. He wants to fight me by myself. Professor Mike has another comment. He says, I found it easier to teach my children karate with basic judo until the age of 10 and 12. Then I began teaching Japanese jiu-jitsu, and awesome, man. Only a purple belt, that's a good point to be teaching your children. It is. And you know what? Even more valuable to your children than martial arts skills you will transfer to them will be the experience of spending quality time with their father. The stream is lagging. Yes, I know, because I'm in China. And there is a great firewall around the entire country. We've been over this many times, so the stream will lag. And the video and the audio will suck, because this is coming to you live from the People's Republic of China. That is why. Now back to the story. Once again, so Steve, the biggest kid in the whole school because he had flunked several times, wanted to fight me one-on-one. I did not challenge Steve to a fight. I challenged his much, much smaller friend to a fight, a guy about my size. And I'm like, crap, I've just been beaten mercilessly by like 15 guys, and now like there's a boss battle about to happen. And so Steve gets up and he punches me, boom, right in the sternum. This is what broke my sternum at this point. Okay, I go flying on the ground. Ugh. Another super chat interrupting the story. That's okay. Sensei Seth said that you are Panera Bread. What restaurant do you think is Sensei Seth? I don't even know what Panera Bread is. If Sensei Seth were a restaurant... If Sensei Seth were a restaurant... Man, that is such an abstract line of thinking. That is such an abstract line of thinking. That is a question for Sensei Seth, man. That is a question for Sensei Seth. Because he is capable of that type of abstract thinking, man. Somebody say Panda Express. Man, I love Panda Express. I wish they had one in China. That stuff is tasty. It's a bobo. Yes. So back to my story. I'm fighting this giant dude named Steve. It was like Billy Lee from Double Dragon fighting a bobo. You know, the big giant boss character. That's exactly what I felt like. And he just kept punching me in the chest. Every time he did, I went flying on the ground and just clutching my chest. Oh, I'm dying. Sensei Seth says he is totally Chick-fil-A. So I'm lying there on the ground feeling like I'm about to die, like I'm about to have a heart attack because my sternum is broken at this point. And I think back to my martial arts training, which is nothing, because I hadn't trained at this point in my life. I didn't know how to fight. I'd seen Bruce Lee movies and played Double Dragon, and so my mind immediately went to Double Dragon, because again, this guy did remind me of a Bobo. It was like a boss battle. And I remember that move that you can do in Double Dragon where you clinch with the other guy and then throw knees into his guts. And I thought, okay, I'll do that. So I grabbed Steve by the coat, because I couldn't grab his head, because he's like twice my size, twice as tall as me. I grabbed him by the coat, and I tried to knee him in the guts. But again, he's like twice my height, so I end up kneeing him in the groin. And I knee him in the groin like 15 times. And I keep doing that. It's always a freaking Steve, says Sensei Seth. Oh, man. So I knee him in the groin like 15 times, and... Okay, I think we lost the connection, but I think we are back. Are we back? Are we back online? Have we re-breached the Great Firewall of China again? Are you guys there? Anybody? Am I talking to myself? I see, the last comment I see is from Max, who says, "Rip Lil Ramsey." Okay, I think you guys are back. We're back online. So what happened to Steve? So I'm kneeing Steve in the gym. He's like 16 times as hard as I can. Not intentionally, because I was going for his midsection, but he was just too tall. So everything was a blur. All I remember is Steve kind of pushed himself loose and then wandered off into the crowd, and I didn't see him again for the rest of the fight. But then I was thinking, I got to get out of here. I got to get maybe inside the school. Find an adult. And so I'm trying to run back to the school, and some of the bullies run out in front, and and then they knock me on the ground. Now here's why the comment about throwing rocks comes into play. They knock me on the ground, and right next to my head there's a rock, this big old rock, and I'm like, I got to do something, otherwise I'm gonna die. So I pick up this rock, and I see a group of people, and I just chuck it at them. And they run off really quick. Nobody gets hit with the rock, fortunately. And then I realize, oh, that was the audience of onlookers. Those were not the people attacking me. Those were just the people watching. And I turn around, and it's the bullies who had just knocked me on the ground, and they start beating the crap out of me again. Okay, bear in mind, the one school bully, the guy I challenged to the fight in the first place, had not participated at all in the fight at this point. And I try running out into the parking lot. I'm on a sidewalk right now. And then these girls with a rope come up. These girls, yes, with a rope come up, and they scream, "Don't let him get away!" Man, these guys were sadists, I tell you what, absolute sadists. And they put this rope in front of me. I'm trying to get into the parking lot to escape somehow, and they like pull me back in, and the bullies just keep beating the crap out of me. Like, what the heck is going on? Yes, these school bullies were sick. They were doing something very evil right here. And it gets to the point where I'm crawling through their legs, trying to get to the door of the school so I can get in and find somebody to save me. And I'm almost there, and then the guys beating me up, they clear out. And then the kid that I had challenged to a fight, he sticks his head through the crowd and he says, come on, let's go." Finally, without having participated in this brawl at all, toward the end, after he sees I am just done, he wants to fight. And I'm just like, no. And I crawl into the school, like crawling on my hands. And then I just collapse. And then here's what happened next. The bullies, the crowd, everybody, like 30 people, they run in the door, and they start chanting, "We won! We won!" And then they trample me. They just run in the school and trample over me. Yes, it's a messed up story. But so I'm lying there just heaving like, because I can't breathe, because my sternum's broken, right? And it's like crushing my lungs, and I can't breathe. I'm like, but the bell rings, and I'm like, well, what do I do? What do I do? So, I crawl into my next period class, which is English, and I just slump over on the desk, and I'm breathing like this. And, the English teacher starts screaming at me, "Shut up, Dewey! Stop making that noise!" And one of the other kids says to the teacher, "But teacher, he got in a fight. He's hurt." And then she's like, "Well, go to the nurse's office and make your noise over there. Get out of my classroom." Anyway, that's the type of school I went to. I go to the nurse's office. There's no nurse there. I just lie down, heaving and sighing and dying for like the next 3 hours. And anyway, it's a sad story. The sad story of my childhood before I started to learn how to fight. We have a super chat from Neo Tangs, who says, "Hey coach, I was curious, since a lot of people asked earlier between Drew and Kyle, who do you think is going to win the grappling match this week?" Drew and Kyle. Oh man, I'm not cued in on this particular match. Drew and Kyle. Can we have some last names? And which organization are they going to grapple for? So I'm not familiar with these guys on a first name basis. My apologies. So I'm not sure who's fighting. Let me get some water here. Ramsey almost got murdered. Yeah, man, I almost got murdered a lot of times in junior high school, to the point my mom pulled me out of school the following year because she was afraid for my life. Kids were brutal back then. They were really, really brutal. Did I grow up in River City? Almost, man, almost. You know, when I played the game River City Ransom, which is an awesome video game for the old Nintendo, it just kind of made sense. There are bullies crawling all over the place trying to beat you up, bullies roaming the school, fights happen all over. That was basically my childhood. It wasn't far off from reality. All right, let's take a look at some questions. I would like to give you an update, says Charles. I was a hard gainer. Um, I was the hard gainer you did the video on. Okay. I followed your instructions, but I have yet to gain any weight. Any other suggestions? Okay. I believe my suggestion was calculate how many calories you're eating in a day, then double or even triple it. So you're still not gaining weight. At this point, you might want to consider the possibility of parasites. Because if you, let's say you were eating 2,000 calories before, you doubled that to 4,000 or tripled it to 6,000, and you're still not gaining any weight at all. It's entirely possible that you may be suffering from some parasites, so go get that checked out. They are easy to deal with. So that has happened. It's not uncommon to have gastrointestinal parasites. So go check that out. It might not be it's not the only possible cause, but it is a probable cause. All right, we have a super chat from Steven who says, "Hey coach, I found a gym that teaches judo and jiu-jitsu. Can I dominate a wrestler with these two fused disciplines?" Depends on the wrestler. Depends on the wrestler. There are all kinds of different skill levels in wrestling, just like there are all kinds of different skill levels in judo and jiu-jitsu. So, yeah, man. Judo and jiu-jitsu are absolutely fantastic grappling arts, and you should totally do them. And at the same time, especially if you're having trouble handling wrestlers, learn how to wrestle. If you want to learn how to counter a technique, learn that technique. If you want to learn to counter takedowns, learn takedowns. If you want to learn how to counter punches, learn punching, etc. So learn everything you can about wrestling as well. That can be one of the most valuable, that is the most valuable thing you can do to learn to fight wrestlers. Now, if you understand wrestling, right? If your wrestling has a solid base and you're also good at judo and jiu-jitsu, there you go. Ivan N says, "Hello coach, I'm 22 and in the path of losing weight. I was wondering if it is not too late for me to pursue a career in MMA. Many thanks in advance." Of course it's not too late for you to pursue a career in MMA. It's not too late. 22. That's a good starting point. I know a lot of folks out there, they feel like, especially when they see these young prodigies who started, say, jiu-jitsu at the age of 5 or 6, and then by the time they earn their blue belt, when they're like 16 or 17, they've got 10, 11, 12 years of jiu-jitsu experience under their belts. And some of these guys, there was this one kid who had trained jiu-jitsu from a very early age. He had like 12 years of jiu-jitsu experience by the time he finally got his blue belt. I think he was 17 years old when he got his blue belt, and he was able to consistently beat black belts. And that confused a lot of people until they stop and realize these guys actually have comparable grappling experience. So, but starting at 22, please don't feel discouraged because there are some world-beating teenagers out there who are prodigies, okay? Because being a prodigy is not the norm. Beating black belts when you're a 17-year-old blue belt is not normal. That's exceptional. If you're not exceptional right now at the age of 22, that's okay. You know what the average age of a UFC fighter is? It is 30 years old. That's the average age of a UFC fighter. It's actually like 29.9 years old. But yeah, don't feel discouraged. 22 is prime training time. That is the perfect time to train. In your early 20s, that's when your brain starts to become fully formed. So it's a great time to start wrapping your mind, your newly formed mind, around concepts of training. All right, we have another super chat from Cran who says, "MMA has evolved so much over the years. Is it the same with your classes? Have you taught something once and realized later it was no longer effective?" Yeah, I suppose so. I've not so much because of the evolution of the sport of MMA, more so the evolution of my understanding of the sport. For example, There was a triangle choke escape that I used to teach all the time. I used to do it all the time. I even made a YouTube video about it way back in the day. And I've taken that video down. I no longer teach that one because I teach more efficient triangle choke escapes now. Things that simply work better. Not to say that that old triangle escape can't work or doesn't work. It's just there are better ways to do it, more efficient ways to do it. So I'm all about efficiency. So yeah, I'm always trying to update my mindset, always trying to update my game plan to do what works, to do what's better. People have 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 neck to choke, right? There are only so many possible ways to move, but there are certainly training tendencies in the sport that do evolve. The age-old question, as a kickboxer, how do you fight a taller opponent? Rowan Middleton asked this. Rowan, spar with all the tall guys that you can find. They're all going to fight different. There's no one cookie cutter answer like get on the inside or whatever, because this guy might be an absolute ninja inside the clinch or the infighting range. A lot of tall guys are. So that's often some terrible advice that people give you when fighting a taller fighter. Just get on the inside. Except taller fighters deal with this situation constantly, and so they tend to be really good at that range of fighting. Okay? My advice is spar with as many taller fighters as you can. And then you will start to see maybe certain similarities, but more likely you're going to see that everybody is radically different. Everybody fights radically differently. Everybody uses their reach differently. The only way to become adept at consistently fighting taller people is to consistently fight taller people. It is that simple. Charles says he was checked for parasites. Again, Charles is the hard gainer who's been trying to gain weight. He tried eating more, and he's still not gaining weight. So he doubled his caloric intake, supposedly. No parasites. And yeah, he's still not gaining weight. What does he do? Whew, man. I gotta ask you, Charles, how much... Are you doing a lot of cardio? Because if you are doing a lot of cardio, and your goal is gain weight, cut back on that cardio. And maybe focus more on lifting instead. Stephen Jameson says, why don't we see more like Lyoto Machida in the UFC? Can a pure striker be the man in any weight class? Lyoto Machida is not a pure striker. I mean, he has an extensive grappling background. Like all mixed martial artists, he cross-trains. He is a jiu-jitsu black belt. He is a sumotori, a practitioner of sumo. And if you watch his fight with Rashad Evans, man, you see that come out. When Rashad tries to clinch, man, you see the sumo technique come out on Lyoto Machida's part. But the reason that Lyoto Machida is able to use his striking so effectively is specifically because he knows how to grapple. If you want to showcase your striking in the sport of MMA, you have to be a good grappler. You have to be. Otherwise, you will spend the whole time on the mat, on your back, getting beaten up. All right, we have a super chat from Alex Jones. Alex Jones watches my channel? Whoa. Question. What do I focus on? Situation, 5-round boxing match. Same age and frame. He has 13 kilograms of muscle on me. Neither of us train under a boxing coach. Okay, you got a 5-round boxing match coming up with a heavier guy. Neither of you train in boxing. Or train with a boxing coach. What do you focus on? Learn how to box, man. Learn how to box. He's a bigger guy, okay. All right, he doesn't box. You don't box. You don't train in boxing, I should say. You might think you do, but you don't. What do you need to do? You got to learn how to box. All right, assuming he's not going to train, he's not going to get under the tutelage of a coach. He's a bigger guy. He's probably going to come straight down the middle, get very aggressive, and just try to club you to death with his punches. He's a puncher, right? So you got to learn how to box. You got to learn how to move like a bullfighter. How does a bullfighter move? They bait the bull to come straight forward. They hold out their cape. Here, come get me. I'm behind the cape. And then what do when the bull comes? They move to the side. So the bull runs through the cape instead of through the man. All right, you got to make angles with lateral movement like that. You got to move at diagonals, moving forward this way or forward that way. So when he comes this way, you move that way, boom, and then hit him from the side. So you got to learn to fight like a bullfighter, because essentially you're fighting a bull. I hope that helps Alex Jones. Okay. Our friend YV says, Mr. Ramsey, how do I properly integrate discipline into my life? I've been trying for a while, but I haven't been able to be fully successful. Any advice? How do you properly integrate discipline in your life? Well, do you have any consequences? Do you have any consequences? Because if there are no consequences, there's no discipline. I mean, think about it for a minute. If you're trying to discipline a child, and you say, little Billy, don't do that thing, and then little Billy does that thing, and then you're just like, kids will be kids. Little Billy learns nothing. Little Billy has not received discipline. On the other hand, if you say, little Billy, don't do that, or this will be the consequence, or you will lose your privileges, or whatever the case will be, or I will smack you upside the head. Apparently, that's not a popular thing to do anymore, but if there is a threat of discipline, okay, what happens? What happens? Then little Billy has a chance to reevaluate. Maybe I should not do that thing, or I will lose my privileges, or woe betide me, whatever, right? So how do you become a disciplined person? You have to understand the consequences of not being a disciplined person. You have to understand the consequences of your actions. Now, what are you trying to do specifically? Let's go back to the beginning of this Q&A where the guy asked me about leg kicks, and I said, what kind of leg kick? He's like, a round kick. What kind of round kick? What target? Get really, really, really specific. If you want to improve in a specific way, get really, really specific about your question. Nature loves efficiency. Nature loves efficiency. And so, our bodies, this animal vehicle, this animal flesh vehicle that our soul is inhabiting, it wants to be comfortable, right? And civilization is built up around making this thing comfortable. And when we are comfortable, we don't want to move. We want to stay comfortable. We want to stay warm, well-fed, comfortable. Okay? That's normal. That is the state of normal. And we work ourselves into a frenzy thinking, I am bad, I am wrong, I am all kinds of messed up because I like being comfortable. So I got to whoop myself into shape. So I got to seek some motivation. So I got to discipline myself. You have to have the foresight to see your future self as a real person, to have empathy with your future self. Because what are the consequences for not disciplining yourself? It is that your future self will suffer, right? But this animal flesh vehicle that you're piloting right now is telling yourself right now, I am comfortable. This version of me in the present is comfortable. Screw future me. Future me can deal with the consequences. when those consequences come, I don't have to. I'm going to be dead and gone by the time that happens. Future me can deal with the consequences. We don't care about future me. We have no empathy for future me. So what do? You have to learn to be empathetic. You have to learn to love yourself. Not just the here and now me, you got to learn to love future me too. Some of the wisest advice I ever heard was from one of my students. I had these two Russian students. Man, Russian guys are just tough, tough dudes. Man, so many tough guys in the former Soviet Union, man. And these tough dudes, they're fighting, they're sparring. One gets the better of the other. And the guy who got beat up a little bit, he felt kind of bad about it. And the tougher guy, puts his hand on his friend's shoulder. This tougher guy, Sergei was his name. And Sergei says, look, you must learn to love yourself. And I was like, holy crap, that came out of the mouth of a Russian? That's the most emotional, heartfelt statement I've ever heard from a Russian before. But he said, you must learn to love yourself. Because when you truly love your own body, you will never, ever let anyone hurt it for any reason. Especially you. How true, my friends. If you truly love yourself, not just the here and now me that is comfortable, but the tomorrow you that may not be comfortable. When you love that person, you're going to look out for yourself. You're going to understand, if I sit here and eat this giant stack of donuts today and tomorrow and the next day and every morning, future me is going to suffer for it. Future me is going to have some health problems if I don't get up and move. If I feed myself a diet of trash with unpronounceable ingredients, future me is going to suffer. You got to learn to love that person that you are not yet. Because every day, man, we fall asleep. It's a symbolic death, my friends. And then we wake up. We feel, in a way, we're not even the same person anymore. And how do you experience empathy for your future self? Well, you can start by experiencing empathy for your fellow man. Because if you can't experience empathy for all these other possible iterations of who you could have been if the circumstances were different, then how the heck are you going to experience empathy for your future self? Chew on that for a minute. Next question. Dropkicks Core says he's got a double end bag and he wants to know, can I do speed bag techniques on the double end bag? And he plans on making a similar video on the double end bag. I have made a few double end bag videos. Go check out my fighting techniques playlist on my YouTube channel. And yes, there are a number of speed bag patterns you can also do on the double end bag. For example, the block, punch, block, punch, block, punch pattern. This one. You can totally do that one on the double end bag. You can also get your elbows in there. So you got punch, elbow, elbow, block, punch, elbow, elbow, block. That one. Okay. You can do reverse punches or linking, where you go through it and then follow up with the double punches. You can do double punches. You can do the drum roll if you want to, although that one is ridiculously easy. But yeah, there are a bunch of double end bag patterns which you can do the same way as the speed bag pattern, or with slight variations. There's a bunch of stuff you can do with a speed bag. That's a great idea for a video. I'm going to add that to the list. Let me take a snapshot of your comment. I like that one. All right, thank you. Another input from Charles, our hard gainer, who says his training is mostly lifting, mainly because he hates road work. He eats about 2.5 times his normal caloric intake, and for reference, that's about 5,000 calories a day. Oh man, Charles, if you're eating 5,000 calories a day, you're still not gaining weight, you've been checked for parasites, man, that is a tough one. That is a tough one. You may be a mutant. That is, and I'm not saying that sarcastically, you may actually have a genetic mutation. You may be one of those guys that scientists should study. So yeah, Ye Chung Wong says a more comprehensive health checkup, bro. Yeah, man, get a comprehensive health checkup. It couldn't hurt. And if nothing else, you'll learn a lot about how your own body works. All right, interesting question from Cran, who says, in your experience, would you... Hold on, let me scroll back up for a second. In your experience, you would have seen effective and less effective techniques. Do you see any value in teaching or learning the latter? Is there value in learning or teaching less effective techniques when you have more effective techniques at your disposal? No. No. You're going to experience all of the less effective techniques while sparring with the new guys. Because they're going to do all the crazy, stupid stuff on you that is less effective. They're going to try to do the two-handed rape choke on you. That happened to me the other day. I was sparring with a new guy, and he puts two hands on my neck and tries to strangle me like that. And I armbar him, and he's kind of shocked, like, what? Why didn't that work? Yeah, the new guys are going to give you plenty of experience with the less effective stuff. So train the more... Red Flynn says, hey Ramsey, I have 3 legs, 6 arms, and 16 ab muscles. Am I a mutant? Probably. Probably. Okay. Alright, guys. How long have we been going on here? About an hour and a half so far. Hour 40 minutes. Have I heard of karate combat? Yeah, I have. I mentioned that in a video. It was actually a video review of a pair of MMA gloves. So we talked about the gloves they use for the karate combat competitions, which are, it's an interesting design. I'd like to get my hands on some of those for sparring. That would be interesting. Looks like a fun show to watch. Do I vote in the U.S. elections? Man, I haven't voted since... it's been a while since I've voted. Man. It has been a while, not just a while since I voted, it's been a while since I've seen a candidate I've wanted to vote for. All right. Backing off of politics for a moment. All right, we've got a question from the Mono Loco XD, who says, I work at Little... I don't know how to pronounce that. He works somewhere. I've talked a bit with the security guard and discovered he has no martial arts training. What are the chances that he gets beaten up when he's in trouble? I had a good friend who was a bodyguard, a professional bodyguard. He did bodyguarding for some high-profile celebrities. He worked for Tiger Woods, worked for Paris Hilton, worked for a number of other big names. And I had a bunch of questions for him because I wanted to know. He didn't have... He was a big, strong guy, big, intimidating-looking guy. Not a lot of martial arts experience, but, you know, the type of guy that most people just would stay away from because he's big and scary-looking. And I asked him, like, what's that like? Like, how often does hand-to-hand combat actually come into play in personal protective services like that? And he said, almost never. Almost never. It's way more important to look intimidating than to know martial arts. He says a lot of martial artists fail in this line of work. They fail in this line of work because they're small, wimpy-looking guys, even though they know how to fight, but people always try to mess with them. And that's the last thing the clients want, is people messing with you, is fights starting. They don't want to deal with legal trouble surrounding that. They don't want court cases surrounding their bodyguard beating somebody up. Right? That's a problem. So it's much more important to have a visual deterrent in personal protective services like that than it is to have martial arts experience. Let's take a look. Maybe we'll take a couple more questions. Do you think boxing is a great start to learn to fight? Yes, absolutely. Boxing is one of the most fundamental things that you need to know to learn how to fight. So yes, do that. All right, let's take one more question, and then we'll wrap up this Q&A. Hopefully we can do another one sooner rather than later. Drathan Nake says, Ramsey, I have a question. Maybe I'll take a couple more, but no question written there. Sapphire says, how did you go bald? I have androgenic alopecia, that is male pattern baldness. It is genetic. So, yeah. Drathan Nake says, was I a missionary? Yes, back in the 90s, I was a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Did that for 2 years. A martial arts style. No, it's not. It's a video game as far as I understand. That would be a terrible question to end on. What are some good affordable compression brands? Asks Fatty Cat. Oh, Fatty Cat. I remember you asked a similar question in the comments. Like, what does compression wear actually do? What is it good for? What are some affordable brands? Yeah, I put that on my to-do list of videos to make because there's a lot to say about that. So, yeah, stay tuned. Stay tuned. I do have some comments about that in a video in the future. Charles says he basically has a long lineage of idiopathic short stature. Basically, certain members of the family don't grow properly. Okay, so Charles, it sounds like you've in part answered your question that there may be a genetic propensity to be on the smaller side. So, yeah, a medical checkup can definitely help you sort some things out. One of my sisters recently found out that she had some genetic conditions, and understanding that was able to help her cope with it much more efficiently. So what you know yourself can help you a great deal. So the more you know, the better. How to prevent baldness. If you are genetically predisposed to go bald, you're going to go bald, man. I mean, you can put a wig on, you can stress out over it, or you can just accept it and go bald. I mean, man, who cares? Who cares? A good cup recommendation, I would recommend get a Thai steel or aluminium cup. I actually find they're more comfortable than the plastic kind. Just tie those on tight. Got a whole video about that. They are the best protection. I know there are a bunch of fancy, expensive brands out there, but nothing beats a Thai-style metal cup for protection. How do I go bald? I have a whole video about how to go bald because for some reason a lot of people are very fixated about this. Man, I'm glad that I went bald in my early 20s because I didn't sit around thinking, oh no, is my hair going to fall out? Oh, my precious little hairs are falling out. And stressing out over it, man. What a waste of your life. Just get on with your life, man. Get on with your life. We have one more super chat from Not Matthew. It's Not Matthew. I'm not sure who he is, but Not Matthew says, do you recommend any striking gloves for the heavy back, like what Jack Dempsey talked about in his book? Sure, man. Yeah. Yes. Put some bag gloves on. There are different types of bag gloves. There are bag gloves with no padding where it has a little grip bar in the center, or just leather over the knuckles. If you have well-conditioned pins, those are great. They'll stop you from skinning up your knuckles. and the grip bar prevents the bones from slipping around all over the place. Hey, thanks for the tip, Daniel Ortega. There are boxing gloves. You can use straight up boxing gloves as bag gloves. I would recommend get a separate set of bag gloves and sparring gloves so you don't pack your sparring gloves with your bag work. It just really depends on how you want to train and what you want to accomplish. For example, if you're training for boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, any sport where you have to wear a boxing glove, but you're not used to punching in the boxing glove, it's going to be a rude awakening for you if you get into a fight with boxing gloves on. Okay? And if you are training for bare knuckle fighting, if you're in the bare knuckle boxing championships or whatever, and all you've ever done is punch the bag with the boxing gloves on, you're going to be a little shocked when you hit somebody with a bare hand for the first time. It's gradually, because that is a gradual process. Don't go full blast with bare hands on day one, my friends. Do I use soap or shampoo when washing your head? Yeah, I guess. Why is so why is everybody so interested in the intricacies of of hygiene for bald people? Oh, this is a great one. This is a great one. I might have to end on this one. Um, how many times have you been recommended by a doctor to drink hot water to heal from a disease since you moved to China? By a doctor, that's never happened. By a lot of Chinese people who are not doctors, all the time. All the time. Drink hot water. It is healthy, they always say. It is healthy to drink hot water. If you've never lived in China, then you may not understand the Chinese obsession with drinking hot water. Like, drinking cold water is such a foreign concept. They'll be like, don't drink cold water. Cold water will make you sick. Ah, don't do it. You crazy Americans and your cold water, you're maniacs. Drink hot water, it's healthy for you. And, historically that makes sense because, in older times they would sterilize the water by boiling it. And so to ensure that the water was clean and fit to drink, they would boil it. And they would often drink their hot boiled water with tea. They'd pour that over tea leaves and drink that. That was a normal thing for Chinese people to do, and that's a tradition that has stuck. Okay? So even in the modern world where you can get potable water, bottled water, all this other stuff, it is extremely common to drink it hot in China. So, yeah, you're going to get a lot of raised eyebrows, people wagging their fingers at you if you drink water in China. A lot of the world is like that. A lot of countries. People in India, very similar. It's a very similar culture about hot or warm drinking water. Daniel Ortega sends in a super chat. He says, how much money would I need to train and live around in your gym for 3 months? He is from the U.S. Oh, man, that's a good question. Okay, living in Shanghai for 3 months, that would be the most expensive thing. Finding a place to live and stay for 3 months. And that's going to be wildly variable. There are very, very expensive places to live. You might be able to find a cheap hostel, something like that. I'm not sure what the price tag on that would be. But, yeah, man, Shanghai is one of the more expensive cities in the world and the most expensive city in China to live in as far as housing costs. Food, you can eat very cheaply in China. Of course, you can spend as much as you want, but you can find some really, really, really cheap places to eat out, especially. It's cheaper to eat in many cases than it is to prepare your own food. How much does the gym cost? Trying to think. I don't have a price list in front of me. 'Cause I don't set the price lists at my current gym. I've got people for that. So I think it's around 100 US per month for general memberships at my gym right now. If you it's different for members of the professional fight team. They train for free. So man, that's a good question. Then you got to deal with visas, get your passport, travel, All the travel, man, that's a big thing. Now, when that could even be a possibility, because the borders are still closed, getting a flight from the U.S. to China is virtually impossible at this time, unless you have unless you are sponsored by the government. So yeah, man. Hopefully, hopefully the borders open up sooner rather than later. Hopefully the situation improves worldwide. Why am I getting all these questions about vampires? Okay, we'll skip that one because I don't understand what's being said. All right, guys, last question. Last question, then I gotta split. Teach me how to fight a drampire. What the heck is a drampire? Is that like a dun peel, like a half vampire, half person? I don't even know. I'm not well versed in vampire lore. All right, an actual serious martial arts question to end on. All right. Oh man, I almost forgot. I'm gonna give a shout out to my new channel sponsor. Got a new channel sponsor, No Gi BJJ Gear. Discount code for you, Ramsey10. That's my name, Ramsey 1010 for a 10% discount on all your purchases on some already excellent deals. I may sound like a commercial here. I have turned down so sponsors over the years, so many potential sponsors who have approached me saying, Ramsey, can you pimp out our product? To which I have flatly told them, no, I am not interested in your product. It is not something I would ever use. It is not something that I like. This is different. No Gi is a brand I've actually used. It's a brand I actually like. So when they approached me, I was like, yes, the stars have aligned. This is a brand I use. I loved their stuff before they ever sponsored my show. So big shout out to No Gi BJJ Gear. Go check them out. Again, use the code Ramsey10 for a 10% discount on all your purchases on their website. So yeah, once again, thanks for the sponsors. Go check them out. Great source for rash guards, spats, fight shorts, and all your no-gi and MMA fight apparel needs. All right, any other questions before we take off that have nothing to do with vampires, please? Okay. Do I teach two-knuckle or three-knuckle punches to your students? Yes, I teach them the difference, what two-knuckle punches are for, and what three-knuckle punches are for. Right? They are different things. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off here. Thank you for joining me for this live Q&A. Thanks for all the super chats. Thank you for all your questions and, you know, all your entertaining comments about vampires and Transformers and whatever else we talked about this time. Thank you for watching. Now get out there and train.